In this video, we will review the basic transformations of translations, reflections, and rotations. For this video, we're going to stick to, when it comes to rotations, it'll only be around the origin. Okay, so first of all, let's go through the rules. You need to memorize these. So for translations, if you want to translate left 3, well, left, that's an x value change, so x minus 3. The y value will stay the same. If I want to translate right 3, then that's still an x value change, but it'll be x plus 3. The y value stays the same. If I want to move up 3, that's changing the y values. So the x value will stay the same, but I will have to add 3 to the y value. If I want to move down 3, the x value will stay the same, but the y value will be decreased by 3. So that's how those rules go. All right, so you don't really need to memorize those. That's not what I was thinking of. It's the next ones that we have to memorize. Reflecting over the x-axis, the rule is x opposite of y. Reflecting over the y-axis, it is opposite of x, comma, y. Reflecting over the line y equals x, it's going to be y, x. Reflecting across the line y equals negative x is going to be opposite of y, opposite of x. And you just need to memorize these 7 rules, all right? Starting with these 4. You have to memorize them. Rotating 180 degrees is around the origin is going to be opposite of x, opposite of y. A 90-degree clockwise rotation is going to be y, opposite of x. And counterclockwise will be opposite of y, x. All right, with the exception of 180 degrees. All right, put this aside for a minute. The other ones all occur in pairs. Notice if you look at just the first coordinate, it goes positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. So that's one little hint that will help you memorize these when you're not sure. If you look at these that go in pairs like x-axis, y-axis, y equals x, y equals opposite of x. Clockwise, counterclockwise. These are all pairs, and the first one is positive, and then the next one's negative. Positive, negative, positive, negative. All right, so you just have to memorize these 7, and you're golden. So make sure you have this written down and commit it to memory. So let's do the actual problems now. So we are going to draw the image, write a rule for the transformation, and apply the rule to the coordinates of a point. Don't forget to label the vertices. Okay, here we go. So we're going to translate right 4 and down 2. Sometimes it's easier to just do the transformation on the graph. So for example, looking at point D, if I move right 4, so that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 2, so it would be 1, 2. So I could find D prime that way. Okay. Similarly, I'll do point E. So I will just go right 4 and down 2. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So this will be E. Okay. Let's do the same thing with F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So sometimes that is the easiest way. However, sometimes you might find it easier to use the rule. So if I want to go right 4 and down 2, that would be x plus 4 and y minus 2. Right 4, down 2. So notice that the coordinates of point D are -4, 1. So I could use the rule by adding 4 and subtracting 2. So that would give me, well, negative 4 plus 4 is 0. And then 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So that tells me that d prime will be 0, negative 1. And so I could have found this point that way. All right, hopefully I am all set up to draw these lines. Nope, I am not. Okay, let me just change the color and thickness. All right, if I leave it like this, I'm going to lose a point or two for not labeling. So let's be sure to label d prime, e prime, f prime. All right, for problem number 2, we need to reflect across the x-axis. It is generally easy to do visually. So we see the x-axis is here horizontally. D is 1 above, so d prime will be 1 below. Point F is 2 units up, so f prime will be 2 units down. Point E is 5 units up, so I'm going to go 5 units down. That is probably the quickest way to graph this problem. So this was d prime, this was f prime, and this was e prime. Don't forget to label. Now, the rule for reflecting across the x-axis, remember we did it up here. It's x opposite of y. Memorize that. So we already know this is x opposite of y. Okay, now we can use that rule. I mean, I can look and see that the answer is going to be negative 4, negative 1. But let's use the rule instead. The rule says keep the x value the same. So negative 4 is the x value. And then do the opposite of the y value. Don't say negative, say opposite. That will remind you to change the sign. So this is 1, so I'm going to put negative 1. All right, which is what we knew from the graph. Now, we need to reflect across the line y equals x. I do want you to understand what the line y equals x looks like. The line y equals x is a diagonal line at a 45-degree angle. In other words, straight through the middle of this graph. So the reflection of this should be the mirror image on the other side of that line. However, I do think it is easiest to actually use the rule instead of trying to actually do the reflection diagonally. So the rule for a reflection over the line y equals x is y comma x. And it really matches the equation y equals x. If I say y equals x, see how I have the y and the x? So it really tells you how to write the rule. Okay, so let's use the rule. The rule is just saying switch these around backwards. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to swap these. So first we put y, which is 1, and then we put x, which is negative 4. Okay, so that's point d prime. So the point 1 comma negative 4, this will be d prime. But how about the other points? So I think we should do all of the points the same way. So what about point E? Let's use the same approach. Point E, no, okay, point E is up here. Point E is the point 0, comma 5. So what about E prime? Again, we'll just switch them around backwards. So this will be 5, comma 0. and that will be right here. That will be E prime. And then what about F? Point F is 1, 2. So what about F prime? The rule says yx, so that'll be 2, 1. All right, 2, 1 would be right here. All right, let's draw it. I need to change the color back. Okay, so this is going to be F prime, and this will be E prime, and this will be D prime. Now, problem number 4, rotate 90 degrees clockwise around the origin. Remember, the rule for a 90-degree clockwise rotation is y opposite of x. You just simply have to memorize those rules. And really what I recommend is to use the rule on all of the points. So, so we have the points D, but then E is 0, 5, and F is 1, 2. So I'm about to use this rule on all 3 of these points. So the rule says y opposite of x. The y value is 1. The opposite of x is positive 4. And notice why it's so important to say opposite of x. If I say negative x, I would be tempted to put a negative sign on the 4, but that would be wrong. This negative sign in a rule means the opposite of x. If x is already negative, you have to make it positive. And then we have E prime. So we will do y, which is 5, and the opposite of x, well, the opposite of 0 is still 0. And then for F prime, we're going to do y, which is 2, and the opposite of x, which is negative 1. And then we will graph these. So 1, 4 would be right here. 5, 0, and 2, negative 1. So this will be D prime, E prime, and F prime. And that's it. Okay. For problem number 5, we need to translate left 2 and down 5. So again, it's probably easiest just to do that right on the graph. So I'm going to go left 2 and then down 5. So that would be here. And same thing with B. Left 2, down 5 would be here. So this will be my A prime, B prime. The rule. So left 2 is x minus 2. Down 5 is y minus 5. Okay, A prime, so I could just look at A prime on my graph and I know that it is negative 3, negative 2. So I know that's going to be the answer. Let's practice using the rule though. So if I did minus 2 and minus 5. So negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. All right, now down 3. So if I move the A down 3 and the B down 3, that gives me this. So this will be my A prime and my B prime. The rule, so down 3, that is a y value change. So the x stays the same and we have y minus 3. Okay, so again, I can see that b prime is 3, negative 1, but let's use the rule which says leave x alone and subtract 3 from the y value. So if I do minus 3, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So that's going to give me 3, negative 1. All right, number 7, reflecting across the line y equals negative x. Guys, I do want you to understand that the line y equals negative x is a diagonal line, but it's a downward facing, a downward sloping line. So this is what the line y equals negative x looks like. Drawing that line will just help you visualize where your answer should be, so you can check your work really at a glance. It should be over in this area somewhere when we're done. But the rule, let's use the rule. So the rule for reflecting over y equals opposite of x is going to be the opposite of y, opposite of x. Okay, memorize that. So let's use the rule for both A and B. So point B is the point 3, 2. So I'm going to write that down. And so I'm going to actually find B prime as well. So opposite of y. So looking at point A, the opposite of y would be negative 3. The opposite of x would be positive 1. Now for B prime, opposite of y, opposite of x. The opposite of y is negative 2. The opposite of x is negative 3. Let's plot these points. So negative 3, 1 is right here. And negative 2, negative 3 is right here. Uh-oh. Didn't mean for that to be blue right now. Okay, so there is our reflection. And don't forget the label. So this is A prime and this is B prime. Notice visually how you can see that these are mirror images across this downward facing diagonal line. That is the line y equals negative x. All right, number 8, reflecting across the x-axis is probably easier to do visually. So A is 3 up, so I'm just going to go 3 down. And so that's A prime. B is 2 up, so I'm just going to go 2 down. All right, so this is A prime and B prime. We do need to know the rule, which is x opposite of y. Do memorize that. Okay, so we already know that B prime is the point 3, negative 2. But we could use the rule and say x is 3, and the opposite of y is negative 2. We could do that as well. Okay, it gives you a way of double checking. If you get 3, negative 2, and then you look at the graph and you don't see a point there, you know you did something wrong. 180-degree rotation around the origin. You had to memorize that the rule for that is opposite of x, opposite of y. Just memorize that rule. And we're going to use that. So again, let me record what point B is, 3, 2. And we will use the rule to find A prime, and B prime. So opposite of x, opposite of y. Opposite of x is positive 1. Opposite of y is negative 3. Opposite of x is negative 3. Opposite of y is negative 2. And now let's plot these points. So 1 comma negative 3 is here. That's my A prime. Negative 3, negative 2 is here. That's my B prime. Okay, now similarly we will do a 90-degree clockwise rotation. And that, the rule for that is going to be y opposite of x. Okay, you just have to memorize that that's the rule for 90 degrees clockwise rotation. Let's use the rule again. So let's see, point A is the point negative 1 comma 3. Okay, time for the rule. Y opposite of x. Y is 2. The opposite of x is negative 3. Y is 3. The opposite of x is positive 1. So let's plot these. 3 comma 1 is right here. Okay, that will be A prime. 2 comma negative 3 is right here. That will be B prime. All right, that is how you do a 90-degree clockwise rotation around the origin. All right, for problem number 11, we are given the rule, and we have to do everything else ourselves. So, x minus 1, y minus 2. That means that we're going to translate left 1 and down 2. So now we can do the graph. So if I go left 1 and down 2, this should be A prime. And if I go left 1 and down 2, this will be B prime. Okay, now we're given the pre-image. Point, excuse me, point A is negative 1, 3. I can use the rule that says subtract 1 and subtract 2. Negative 1 and negative 1 will make negative 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. So there you go. Also, we can double check with the graph. Negative 2, 1, negative 2, 1, there it is. All right. We are also given the rule for problem number 12. So this is a rotation. We had to memorize the rules for rotation. And opposite of yx, that is a 90-degree counterclockwise rotation. All right, we just had to memorize that. So 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. To actually perform this, we will use the rule. So let's see. Point A is the point negative 1 comma 3. Okay, so let's find A prime. Opposite of y, x. The opposite of y is negative 3. X is negative 1. Now B prime. The opposite of y is negative 2. And the opposite of x is negative 3. Hold on. I didn't mean to say the opposite of x. We're doing the opposite of y and then x. So the opposite of y is negative 2. And then x is 3. Okay, so these are the points that we are going to plot. So A prime is -3, -1, and B prime is -2, 3. All right, so here's my A prime and my B prime. And that's it. That's how you do number 12. So for number 13, we are given the picture and we have to fill in everything else. I can see that these two segments are mirror images of each other, and they are mirror images of each other over this line. A diagonal line like this is the line y equals x. If it were downhill, it would be y equals -x. But so we are reflecting over the line y equals x. We have memorized that the rule for that is yx. Okay, you just have to memorize these rules. And this is a simple rule to do because it just means you reverse the x and the y. So if I switch these around, I'm going to have 3, 1. So for number 14, we again are given the image. Now we have this little hint here that this is a translation. So we can see that point E has just moved to the left. That is all. 1, 2, 3, 4. It has moved to the left 4. That's all that happened. Same with point F. I know it's to the left because the original point is point E. The new point is E prime. So I know it goes to the left. A leftward translation is going to change the x value. So left 4 means x minus 4. The y values did not change, so I'll just leave y alone. Okay. I really don't need to do the rule because I could just use the graph for E prime, but let's practice using the rule. So I'm supposed to do x minus 4, so that means 3 minus 4, which is -1. I'm leaving the y value alone, so I'm going to leave that as a 2. So E prime should be -1, 2. Let's check the graph and see if it matches. -1, 2, bam! There's E prime right there. So I can be comfortable that I have the right answer. For problem number 15, they gave us the pre-image and the image, the old point and the new point, G and G prime. These are the trickiest kinds because I have to sort of look at this and figure out what the rule is. I have to work backwards. But we can handle it, we can do it. Let's imagine a generic point x, comma, y. All right, let's imagine that point. Now, let's see what happened to these points, to these values, as the point became the new point G prime. So let's track the x's. All right, see the 3? Obviously, that 3 ended up being this -3. So those are corresponding to each other. I see a -2 right here, and then I see a -2 over here. So these are going to be corresponding. Okay, so the 3 became -3. The x value became the opposite of x. So as far as the rule goes, I'm going to have the opposite of x. How about the y value? -2 and then -2. The y value stayed the y value. It did not change. So I'm just going to put y right here. So this must be the rule. So I can just go ahead and put opposite of x, comma, y. And based on the rules that we have memorized, we know this is the rule for a reflection over the y-axis. So we can write that down. Reflection across the y-axis. Doing that graph is probably easiest done visually. So here's the y-axis, vertical. H is 1 unit to the right, so H prime will be 1 unit to the left. G is 3 units to the right, so G prime will be 3 units to the left. So that is it for problem number 15. All right, last one. Again, we are given the point and then the new point, the pre-image and then the image. We have to work backwards to figure out what the rule was. So let's think about a generic point x comma y and see what it will become based on what happened to point J. So let's track this. So the x value is 3. Where did it go? It went right here. All right, became a -3. All right, let's track what happened to the y value. The y value is here. Clearly, it became a -1. Now, let's translate that into a rule. So the x value stayed in the front, but it became the opposite of what it was. So opposite of x is the first thing. Now, the y value stays second, but it also became the opposite of what it was. So the opposite of y. So this is the rule, so I can go ahead and write down opposite of x, opposite of y. Now, let's think back to our memorization. We've memorized that this is the rule for a 180-degree rotation. So rotate 180 degrees around the origin. You just have to memorize that this is the rule for that. Now we can go ahead and create the graph. They already did one point absolutely for us. What about the other point? So what about point K? Let's do point K now. Point K is 2, -3. Let's find K prime. All right, opposite of x, opposite of y. So opposite of x is -2. The opposite of y is +3. And this is why I don't say -y. I say the opposite of y. If I said -y, you would probably be tempted to put a negative sign here. Opposite of y reminds me that if it's already negative, I do the opposite and make it positive. So let's plot everything. Point J prime is -3, -1. So this will be J prime. K prime is -2, 3. All right, be sure to label. And that is it, my friends. Good job.